I keep falling, never falling 6 feet deep. For real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. The mind activation, react like I'm facing time. Like for real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. I keep falling, never falling 6 feet deep. For real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. The mind activation, react like I'm facing time. Like for real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream.
Yeah, fuck your handouts, we here to stand out. Told mama your youngest child got a plan, damn. God's will, I'm about to shine now. No chill, I rush in like Blau. Hit you with that ill style, no deny. Since a youngin' marching to my own beat. Never frontin', kept the lawyer, overcoming the heat. Dedicated since the soil, learned to walk on my feet. Doctor said I'd have my limits, I accept no defeat.
Hey, good morning, Bronco fans. It's the Denver Bronco New Orleans Saints pregame show here with the Rocky Mountain Sports Report and Slade Sports Squad. I got Alex with me and I got Matt with me today. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of developments. Hey, everybody out there, shoot us a comment. Let us know where you're listening from. I'd like to know where our listeners are coming from. Shoot us any comments, questions you have. Matt, let's dive right into it. Who's our quarterback today?
We got Kendall Hinton. He's not really a quarterback. He's been a wide receiver for a while now. I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to play out. He has had no reps as a QB in the NFL at all. And he didn't even have a chance to practice as a quarterback. So I don't even know what our scheme's going to look like today. At Wake Forest, where he was at, they ran a lot of awkward RPO, weird formations that I know our team did not have enough time to really learn because, he got promoted to quarterback, 12 to 16 hours ago? So yeah. It's going to be an interesting day. I think we're going to see a lot of 12 and 13 personnel similar to last week, but instead of being under center, he's going to have to line up him the pistol to buy him some more time. He does not have any experience reading or setting protections or making those reads at the line of scrimmage. So we're going to really have to set him up for success by giving him those extra blockers. So I say a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. We'll see a lot of 2-back personnel. We're going to have to see some RPO. That's his strength. So, as a passer, I would say it's pretty mediocre. He had one more touchdown than interception, a little over 1,500 yards. So it's a little grim, but let's be hopeful. How are you feeling about it, Alex?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties on my side. Could you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
How are you feeling about the quarterback situation?
As good as you can feel about someone you don't really know too much about. Like I said, he's or like you said, played at Wake Forest, not really a pro scheme in any means. And like you said, hasn't played quarterback in probably 2 years. I think it's been 2 full calendar years. I think we're just going to kind of sling this one with a hope and a prayer that somehow we can pull out a win with a quarterback that hasn't played in a while. And I'm guessing that we'll probably see both of these people you got up on the screen at one point or another. I wouldn't imagine we go a whole game without running some sort of wildcat with Royce Freeman, being that he was a former high school quarterback. So it's just going to be whatever we can do to squeeze out a win here in Denver today. So
yeah, and I threw up some stats here just as a little comparison. Royce Freeman, threw one pass in college football. That was his freshman year. And then in high school, he threw 5 passes. He was 3 for 574 yards and a touchdown. Kendall Hinton, has a little more experience. And I think depending on how the Broncos go with their game plan, I see them, maybe looking to go more with Hinton because I think that's going to put more of a passing option into the game. And I do think, and Matt brought this up last night, and I thought it was a good idea. Hey, sometimes let's have them both out there, You have those two and Phillip Lindsay lined up in the backfield, sort of some offshoot wildcat, nobody knows who the ball's going to get snapped to and who it's going, So yeah. that would be interesting. And it's definitely going to be interesting the way, Denver's going to try to attack this game now. We'll just have to see. What led up to this whole thing is Jeff Driscoll tested positive on Thursday with COVID. And at first, Fangio came out and said, well, the other quarterbacks in the room, they maintained their social distancing. They were wearing masks. And he said that, that the contact was minimal. I think he said between 2 and 4 minutes over a spread of 2 or 3 days. So we have since found out that that was not accurate. So what do you think, Alex, the NFL is going to impose on the Broncos possibly?
There's going to be a fine of some sort. You saw what they did against all these coaches that weren't wearing their masks on the sidelines. We have 3 quarterbacks that are out because they decided not to wear a mask. So the fact of the matter is we're going to be hit with a fine, and I wouldn't be surprised maybe to have a draft selection taken from us, whether that's a late, like a 5th rounder, however they decide to deal with it. But I would expect at least both those things to happen. So.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Matt? Have you heard anything about, what the potential monetary fine is, loss of draft picks, anything like that?
I haven't seen in terms of monetary. I haven't seen how anything that's suggested how bad it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be significant. I mean, this comes down, as a sports fan and as a medical professional. I mean, it was pure lack of responsibility and accountability on all parts. Unfortunately, this is a serious issue. The world's dealing with right now. It's a serious pandemic. I mean, we've become so accustomed to having masks be part of our daily routine. I mean, there's really no room for error. I mean, I get it. So far, no one's tested positive, which I'm thankful for outside of Driscoll. But I mean, it's inexcusable at this point. I mean, and then blatantly to not convene the whole truth, Mr. Elway. That shows your lack of leadership. You should have been forthcoming. You should but at the beginning you should have really held them accountable. This is a mandated thing across the world. It's not just in football. These policies are put in place to protect us as Americans, and we got to just go with it. So I mean, without getting too political into it, I mean, it just came down to lack of accountability and responsibility. Those players knew damn well they should have had a mask on.
Right. No,
it's simple.
And I agree 100%. Do you think though, if John Elway is a little more forthcoming in information, that the NFL says, hey, let's go ahead and give these guys a break and let's reschedule it. And let's talk about, Matt, the document that we sort of dug up that was seen floating around that talks about the NFL policy on when they will reschedule games and when they will not.
Yeah, so Adam Schefter posted something on his Twitter yesterday, just kind of stating what the NFL owners agreed upon. So the NFL agreed that they would not, the owners agreed that they would not reschedule a game if it was just one specific position group that was affected. For the game to be considered eligible for reschedule, eligible to be rescheduled, it has to be a somewhat serious outbreak, similar to what we're seeing in Baltimore. I think they're at like 13, 14 cases now.
18 now.
18, so
last count I heard was 18.
Yeah, so that's a serious outbreak. I mean, here we have it. We're thankful for contract tracing. That's what really nipped us in the butt here. It came back to us. We found out that our quarterback room did not follow the mandates and wear their mask. I mean, and I know a lot of us are upset, but this contract tracing is across all professional sports. We're seeing it everywhere. So, I mean, same thing falls back in that lack of accountability and responsibility. But that's why the game's not being rescheduled, because it only affected our quarterback room. And technically, we have not seen any positive cases in that quarterback room aside from Jeff Driscoll. Therefore, this game is not eligible to be rescheduled. Even as fans were pounding on the table for it. I mean, unfortunately, it's just what the owners agreed upon, and we're gonna have to roll with the punches. And hopefully, Hinton can bring home a win. And we're gonna go out there and cheer like we do, and hopefully hope for the best.
Yeah, Scott Cole of Rocky Mountain Source, our sports report, is confirming that it is 18 as of this morning. Baltimore's been hit hard. And this is here, and we don't want to get into this. So Cam is a serious outbreak. No excuse on Denver's end for withholding info. And we decided as an organization here at Rocky Mountain Sports Report, we're not going to get into this and say this organization got favoritism over us. That's not. We want to be a fair and accurate journalism team. So we're not going to sit here and point out these things. So the NFL makes their decisions. We just have to roll with them, and that's the way it's going to have to go. So now, Alex, how much pressure does this put on the Denver Bronco defense?
This whole game's going to be riding on their back. I think, especially that defensive line. We're going to have to stop Alvin Kamara, and then Taysom Hill. Both of them, even Taysom Hill being at the quarterback position, that dude has legs. He's proven he can run the ball. Last week he had 2 touchdowns against Atlanta just using his legs. But that's the thing too, is our secondary is our whole defense as a whole is gonna have to be on top of their A game, because if not, we're gonna either see Taysom Hill run for 200 yards and a couple TDs, or he's gonna throw for it, because that dude, he can do it all. I'm a huge fan of Taysom Hill. I think he's a talented guy. And I think at the end of the day, if we don't give him the respect he deserves on the defensive side of the ball, then we could be in for a very long day. So,
yeah, and I agree. One thing, Matt, and I think we discussed this a little bit off line, is Armstead is out for the Saints. So how's that going to favor our pass rush?
So it's actually Armstead and Andres Pete. So they're missing their entire left side. So we're going to have to really, that's going to be their weakness right now. We're going to have to attack it. But at the same time, we cannot be over aggressive and over commit to blitzing. So we have to use a similar game plan to what we used against Miami defensively. Same thing. It's very similar to Tua. Taysom Hill's been around for a long time, but as an NFL quarterback, he's rather inexperienced. I think last week was his first official start. So I say we're going to have to roll out with that same game plan. A lot of our pressure, was not coming from our edges, which even though they're the ones who were getting the sacks, that pressure came from the interior. We were sending gap blitzes. We were doing stunts at the line of scrimmage. We need to do the same thing when we really attack that left side. They're going to be using chips on our edges, because that's where they're going to expect, that's where most people expect pressure to come from. But Denver did a really good job at penetrating the interior line last week. So we got to continue that scheme for sure. If we're able to continue to penetrate the interior, then that allows Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed to really just stay home and set the edge. It's containment. Another thing that we've seen, Mark Barron, I believe, is going to be active for the first time this season. So he's going to be primarily used as a spy and to cover Alvin Kamara, because Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, they're not fast enough.
Right.
So we're going to be relying on Mark Barron for sure for that.
Yeah, definitely. So, and how much of an impact he has, just coming back. So hopefully he's in decent shape and he can play a lot of game. And I like Scott's comment here: keep Kamara off the receiving stat sheet for a second consecutive week. And Atlanta did shut him down, and hopefully Denver has looked at that film and evaluated it, and looked at the game plan that Atlanta used to keep Alvin Kamara off of the receiving stat sheet. So
to touch on that just a little bit before we move on, like Matt had mentioned previously, we can't become over aggressive. We can't solely point out Alvin Kamara and decide to only stop him. It's got to be a group effort, because they do have other talent on that side of the field, obviously with their receiver core and plenty of other people that can make you look silly if you do the wrong thing and if you become overly aggressive with Alvin Kamara. So,
no, I agree 100%. This team is loaded up with talent on the offense. Starting from the quarterback, Taysom Hill, like Alex mentioned, the guy can get out of the pocket and he can make things bad for us. They got Thomas, they got Sanders. This could, if Denver does try to get too aggressive, it could turn out and backfire on them, I think, and lead to a lot of big plays by the New Orleans Saints offense. So, speaking of Thomas and Sanders, how do you attack these guys, Matt? We know AJ Bouye's he's sort of struggled this year. So, how are you going to approach this if you're the defensive coordinator for the Broncos?
Well, this is a tough one. It's a tough matchup for us. It doesn't match up well for our secondary. Michael Thomas is, when healthy, he's a monster. Sanders, we've seen him for multiple years here. We see how dangerous he is in the slot. with AJ Bouye, keep him completely away from Michael Thomas, please. It's especially if we're going to be sending pressure. He's been terrible in man coverage. He's undersized compared to Thomas. It's just going to lead to disaster. If I was Vic Fangio, I would change up our defensive back scheme a little bit this week. I would rely more on Michael Ojemudia, and I would rely more on Devontae Crosby for Michael Thomas. They're better matchups. They're bigger corners. I think last week we had Bathy, Callahan, and Bouye out there as our starting three.
Right.
I would change that up completely. Callahan deserves to be in the slot. He's a natural slot corner. He's a beast in the slot. We've seen him. He's like top 2, top 3 in the league when he's playing in the slot. The most effective lineup we had out there was when it was Bosby. It was Bosby, Callahan, and Ojemudia. That was our best game defensively for our secondary. I know Ojemudia is in the doghouse for how bad he played against Atlanta, but I mean, he's a rookie. We got to move on.
Right.
I mean, we were expecting him to be the number 1 corner against Julio Jones, who's, 11 years vet almost now, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
multi-time Pro Bowler. So, I mean, cut the guy some slack. Let's get him out there. Bassey is a mismatch on Sanders. We can't have that. He doesn't have the cover skills yet. Callahan's going to have to get back in the slot and stay on Sanders. He's going to have to follow him, or Sanders will eat us alive. The big thing with bringing that interior pressure and setting the edges, hopefully we're going to take the legs away from Taysom Hill. He's going to have to rely on the arm strength. On his arm, sorry. And his mechanics are somewhat poor in the pocket. He has a similar problem to Locke. He doesn't set his feet very often.
Yeah, and I agree. We need to keep him in the pocket, to have a chance.
So if we keep him in the pocket, we could see the Saints offense not necessarily be negated, but we're going to have to force them to play outside of their comfort zone when he's rolling to his right and being able to make those passes. I mean, and arm strength is an issue. I don't know if you guys watched last week. He tried to throw a bomb to Sanders, but it ended up being about like 6 yards short. Sanders had to come all the way back down the field. It was a catch still, but I mean, that's Atlanta secondary for you. They're pretty poor.
Yeah, and Atlanta had a horrible game plan going in. I don't know what they were doing. Atlanta allowed 8 sacks. I don't see the Denver Broncos giving up 8 sacks to this Saints defensive front. So,
and Garrett Bowles. I mean, if that happens, then we're at a loss. So,
yeah. I see a comment up here that if you could highlight real quick, Dave Scott said to put Bouye on Sanders. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I'm sorry, Scott, not to call you out, but Sanders struggles in Bouye is struggling in man coverage right now. And the slot, most of the time you're playing that man even across the middle. Even if we're playing a zone, you're following him across the middle. He's not fast enough to keep up with Sanders. He's just not. He's definitely taking a step back. He's been taking significant steps back each year. This was a low risk, high reward type thing when we traded for him. So, I mean, I would not set up Bouye on Sanders at all. If Bouye is going to be on the field, he needs to be, hopefully, they don't typically follow receivers like they used to anymore back in like the Champ days when you'd line up Champ on, whoever the best receiver was, and you just follow him the whole game. That's not kind of how it works anymore. That's not how Vic does things. Everyone's got to hold their own. I would just hope that, he lines up on the third receiver on the field, that second outside guy. I don't know who it is off the top of my head. They have a pretty big wide receiver room that they use multiple weapons. So
yeah,
keep Bouye far away from Thomas and Sanders, please. Far away.
Yeah, definitely. So question to both you and Alex. Do you deploy a dime style defense, and take away from your front seven, or do you just roll with the nickel defense and let's count on our line and our backers to keep Taysom Hill contained and to make him beat us from inside the pocket? What do you think, Alex?
Well, I think the first thing you got to do to keep Taysom Hill in the pocket is, like Matt said earlier, is keep a spy on him. We're always going to have someone. We need to have someone who's got eyes on him at all times. There should never be a time where Taysom Hill is left alone, because that's when he gets dangerous. And even though the arm strength isn't all the way there, I know that he doesn't have the arm strength. We just our corners just have to play better. They whether it's in man or zone, we have to hold our own ground, and we can't give anything easy to Taysom Hill. If he starts getting into a rhythm early in the game, even though he doesn't have the best arm talent, his mechanics aren't always there. we could see him potentially have a breakout game, being that this is his second start. We definitely just don't want to give him anything easy. So,
right, I agree. Your thoughts, Matt, on maybe deploying a dime
I
style
wouldn't.
defense?
I wouldn't do it. It puts you in smaller sets, and I mean, with our secondary kind of being an issue, I think we have one of our safeties is going to be out today. It looks like I think it's Holder. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I mean, I would stay out of the dime for sure. No, it's Duke Dawson. Sorry, I believe it's Dawson who's out. I would stay away from the dime. I mean, they have the ability to eat you up with the run game. They got who is it? Murray's their back is their second running back. I mean, he's a fast guy, but he's also a baller. He's fast and powerful. Yeah, let's like Scott's point out here. That's my point exactly. They would eat us alive in the run game. We don't have the best tackling secondary outside of Kareem Jackson,
Right.
and Justin Simmons, but lately even Jackson's been struggling with tackling. He seems to, in his multi-year career, forgot how to wrap up. He's too busy headhunting lately.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I give him credit.
Everybody,
take some serious.
Hey, everybody wants that highlight film,
Yeah, man. I mean, I give it to him, but at the same time, wrap up, please, because there's been a couple times where he has stopped at a 2 or 3 yard gain or even a loss sometimes, but he's trying to kill him and it doesn't. He whiffs and then it's a 14, 15 yard run down the field. So with our poor tackling lately and lack of depth in the secondary, I would stay far away from the dime. I mean, they're gonna try to use the passing game first. I mean, if you know your dime is working successfully in passing, and then they're gonna hit you with that big run. Whether it's a up the gut or like a draw play from the shotgun or RPO. That just leaves you to too many potential miscues. So I would just stay in our base defense. Keep our front seven in check. Alexander Johnson's gonna have to do a really good job at identifying where or setting his coverage and identifying, what's going on since he's the green dot these days, making sure his players in the right coverage. He's the quarterback of the defense, so it's going to rely a lot on him. He's been doing really well. I mean, this season we've seen Alexander Johnson really skyrocket. So let's hope he has a good game, and let's hope our front seven knows what can continue to penetrate that interior. That's going to be the key, penetrating the interior O-line. And with Andres Pete out, that should be not necessarily easy, but it's going to be a lot less challenging because Andres Pete is a mauler. He's a good, he's underrated at guard for sure.
Yeah. And this comment here by Scott, and I see this every week, and I'm always screaming at my TV, wrap them up, and I agree. A lot of defenders across the league have forgotten how to wrap up when tackling, It's sort of a lost art, and I think a lot of it is too. They just want to go in there, they want to blow somebody up, and they want to end up on ESPN or NFL Network, as a highlight. And that's led to poor tackling and things like that. So
right. I mean, you would think with all the safety mandates that they've been putting in place with tackling, you think people would just learn to. It's what is it? Heads up is the program I think they're using for the youth these days.
Yeah.
Heads up and wrap up. It's accessible. So we'll see.
Definitely. So we had a comment back up here, and we talked about this a little bit. Thoughts on your QB, on our QB. And we both talked. We think it's going to be a mixture of Hinton and Royce Freeman, correct?
Yeah, I believe that we'll see both of them in this game. I don't think that we'll see much of Royce Freeman. I think he'll primarily be on the sidelines or subbing in for whenever we need him. But I do think that in short yard situations or special, if it gets late in the game, fourth down conversions, even long third down conversions, we bring him in for some kind of trickery to, catch the Saints defense off guard, which is another thing that we haven't really touched on is how this Broncos offense is going to get past the Saints defense because they are one of the best in the league. So I hope that at the end of the day, we're smart with what we're doing on offense and we're not just giving them the ball back. So, yeah.
So if you're Dennis Allen last night, you were probably up all night salivating, right? You're looking at guys who haven't taken a snap in the NFL. This is the first game since 1965 where a non-quarterback is starting a football game.
All right.
So
got the nod. So
yeah, I mean, you don't see this very often where a whole quarterback room, gets wiped out. I think that Denver, is going to have to lean a lot on the passing game. I mean, not passing game, the run game, and then using some short passes. Trying to hit Judy and Tim Patrick and players like that, and Hamler. On these short routes, and we don't want to complicate things back there for Hinton or Royce Freeman. We definitely want to take as much pressure off of them as possible. Like I said earlier, I think Hinton is more of your passing style quarterback. His last game that he played in college, or his last meaningful game against Clemson, Clemson was a good team back then, and he played pretty decent. He ran for 94 yards. He passed for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he played a good game against a good team. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to prepare.
Another thing, unfortunately, is that's college football, like we always talk about. I know he's a practice squad quarterback. He's been in the pros technically, but at the end of the day, sometimes that college athleticism doesn't translate to the pros. So that's kind of something we'll have to feel for when we get out there today too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what kind of game plan we use. So I'm thinking that Denver needs to go more into a 2 running back set, 2 tight ends, and let's just try to pound the ball on the Saints. I mean,
well, and if we can have the kind of rushing attack that we had last week against Miami, then there's no reason that, obviously we're not going to want this quarterback to throw 30 times a game,
right?
Like Drew Lock did. But if we can, somehow just step our running game up another level, like the next level up, there should be no problem with our offense. The way that Phillip Lindsay played, the way Melvin Gordon played last week, they should kind of be on the roll at this point, and hopefully they can keep that momentum going into this game and help us out a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Matt, I'll let you take this question from Scott. Any potential for jet sweeps?
I think there's a possibility. I think there's actually a possibility. We could see it. I don't think it's going to be often. With Jerry Jeudy nursing the ankle, KJ's been kind of beat up this season. I think there's room for it. We just don't really have the personnel right now to run it multiple times. I don't. It just wouldn't work out well for us. Now, if it was like Sutton on there, it would be a little bit different. But of course, Sutton's out for the year. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see any kind of trick play. It's everything's game. I said it last night in our chat. This is going to be backyard ball. It's like back in playing on the schoolyard. You're drawing plays on the back of the football.
Yeah.
You run a 9 route, you run a 2, you run a 4, and we'll make it happen. Yeah, and then so it's going to be very unorthodox. I think we're going to see a lot of weird formations. One thing I want to point out about Kendall Hint, though, if you look at him in college and look at him now, his physique has completely changed. He was probably he looked large as a quarterback. He looked like he had some weight on him. I'd probably say north of 220.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's slendered down to play receiver, he's slendered up. So he's gotten a little bit faster too. And he was a good rushing quarterback. So we have RPO in our offense. We just don't use it. It just doesn't fit Drew Lock that great. But yeah, we do have Pat Shermer's offense does have RPO in it. So let's see if it with such little practice, I don't know how effective it'll be. But just going back to my prediction, so it's we don't have Drew Lock, but it's going to be the Saints are going to attack us the same way. They're going to look to take away the run.
Right.
They're going to stack their front seven. They're going to stack the box. They're going to have a safety coming down. Unfortunately, you're just replacing Drew Lock with Hinton and hoping that he can make those short to intermediate throws. That's really all it is, only 10 to 12 yards down the field.
Yeah.
They're going to make him have to pass. That's just how it's going to end up playing if we want any chance of winning this game.
Yeah.
Now, what's the comfort level of that? Hell, if I'm Pat Shermer, what do I got to lose?
Right. No.
Rolling out with the wide receiver, let's make, we're going to make, gotta, what is it? If life gives you lemon, you got to make lemonade. So let's make some lemonade.
That's right. And it's like I said, we've been dealt a pretty bad hand, but you know what? We got to make what we have at it, and the Broncos just have to go out there and have fun. Nobody is expecting us to win right now. The line went from, I think New Orleans was like a 5.5 point favorite. When everybody was supposed to be playing Vegas actually had to put a freeze on the line for a little bit, and let things shake out. And then they reopened. They froze it because everybody was trying to, get in. Then, I'll get in low. While the Saints are only 5.5-point favorites. And then they reopened the line, and it shoots up to 14.5. I've seen it up to 15.5. So, there's not many people out there expecting. So, Alex, what do you think? Because like Matt said, the Saints are going to stack that line. They're going to make us beat them with the run. How would you counter that and maybe try to loosen it up a little bit so we can open up some running lanes?
Play action is going to be the best way, and I know that relies on our running game to be effective still. But if we can get them in, if we can get our offense in short, third and shorts, and then we hit them with play action, I think that's going to open up the middle of the field with them having that safety down in the box. It's the middle of the field is going to be pretty wide open. So as long as we can get some crossing routes or maybe some quick ends, even on the edges, something that's going to get the ball out of our quarterback's hand quickly, then I think that's going to be our best option. Like I said, dude's inexperienced, doesn't really have a lot of time in the NFL. And the last time he played was almost 2 calendar years ago. So like I said earlier, we're going to have to get him going early and simple. It's got to be simple. It can't be none of this, we can't expect him to look like Tom Brady when he hasn't even played a game,
Right.
So, simple. We're going to have to keep it simple, and play action is going to be our biggest asset, I think, in this.
Yeah, we definitely are going to have to keep it simple. And I brought this point up yesterday. Timing is going to be a huge issue. It takes a while for quarterbacks to develop timing with their receivers. So we're not going to be able to run any of these precision routes and timing routes. I think a lot of it's going to just have to be, hey, tight ends, you guys need to just drag across the middle of the field, try to get some separation, and hopefully Hinton can put the ball on him, and hopefully, and then they can run with the ball after the fact, and make some plays. I think Noah Fant, could, especially if they're pulling all these guys up, we get back behind the linebackers and the secondary. I think Noah Fant could have a huge game if we give Hinton the time, and Hinton is comfortable and he stays in the pocket, and allows those patterns to develop, and those routes to be run. So what are your thoughts, Matt?
I mean, another thing that's going to counteract that front seven is we're going to be able to run relatively simple throw like a halfback screen. That'll help calm the blitz down if we can continue to run it successfully. The one thing that I'm starting to get a feel for, and this is just some speculation in my own head, is I think we're going to see a limited role with Phillip Lindsay, and I don't think that's a great idea. But I have a feeling that's going to be the route we're going, especially if we're going to expect him to throw the ball, and with his lack of kind of like the NFL sense of pressure, we're going to probably have to have Melvin Gordon and Royce in there a lot more often than Phil. Phil can't, he's great at pretty much everything else but being a receiver and pass protection. It's where he struggles.
Yeah.
So it's a bad matchup for Phil. I mean, if we could get the run game going, let's, and he's getting the hot hand, let's keep him in. I want Phil on the field as much as possible, but if we're going to have to rely on screens and pass protection from our backs, he's going to have to, take a lesser role today. I think in my initial prediction when we had lockout there, I had a 15-15 split. But I would say Phil's probably going to be closer to the 8 or 9 touches, and we're going to see Royce up there probably closer to 10 to 12, and Gordon probably 10 to 12 with a couple catches.
Yeah, and I agree. We're going to need the bigger personnel groups out there, and people who can pass block, and we all know that Phil does struggle with that. One of his weaknesses, and catching the ball out of the backfield is another one of his weaknesses. So we're definitely going to have these big personnel groupings in there to try to hold off this pass rush of the Saints. Hopefully we can get some short passing game going and then break some runs every now and then. And we're going to see, but the Saints only give up 74 yards a game in running. So
yeah, they're top 6 in I think every category that's measured. I think overall they're top. I think they're 3rd. So we got it. It's a big challenge. Nothing's impossible, but it's not looking too good for us
Any
right
given
now.
Sunday, guys. Any given Sunday.
That's right, Alex. It's like you said last night, Matt. They'll make a movie of this one day.
Yeah, if he wins, man, I'm telling you, I'm gonna start trademarking catchy title names for Disney. They're gonna have to pay me. But no, I mean, the other thing that, just to kind of circle back to something that Alex said, we're gonna have to try to use play action. It's going to be hard because we're not going to be able to line up in our traditional sets. I don't think we'll see Hinton under center. Just because the chemistry is not there between Cush and him. I mean, it's going to be hard to establish this, a traditional play action that we're used to, where we're seeing like the bootleg and things like that our offense is kind of built for. I mean, I think in reality, we're going to come up with a makeshift offense that's going to be primarily RPO, and that's where the play action is going to come from. But I mean, the one thing we have that's in our favor, though, is there's hardly any tape on him as a quarterback.
I was just going to get to that. I think that, you see all these players, even Drew Lock last season, early in his first goings, a lot of people didn't know what to do with him. So, we might have that same luck with Hinton today. So hopefully that, like you said, there's not a lot of tape. There's only college tape, really. Hopefully we can, disguise some things, make it look like we're going to do one thing and then go with another thing, and kind of confuse the Saints defense a little bit. So
yeah, there's going to have to be some trick plays out there. I mean, if we have Royce and him on the field, we could see Royce motion him out to the slot. There's a lot of stuff that we could do. I mean, It's just going to be with such a short time frame, how experimental are they willing to get? Right. And at 4-6, there's not really much to lose. I mean, technically, we're still considered that in that fringe playoff team, but I mean, in reality, that's probably not going to happen. But, at this point, what do you have to lose? You're right there, kind of like at the edge. You're sitting in the middle of the draft. A loss wouldn't necessarily hurt you. A win wouldn't necessarily hurt you. Let's just go out there and ball. I mean, that's really all we can do.
Right. No, I agree. And you come out and you throw everything but the kitchen sink at these guys, and you may even just throw the kitchen sink at them as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to be I'm looking at Kendall Hinton. The guy's only 6 foot tall. So I see he may have problems with a lot of batted balls and things like that. So I think we're going to have to try to roll this guy outside of the pocket a little bit, and give him a little bit more room so he can see his passing lanes and things like that. So it's going to definitely be interesting, and it's going to be a learning experience on the sideline for a bunch of players this afternoon. So.
Yeah, and I just had someone kick out his demographic. So he is 6 foot. So he was 6 foot, almost 230 in college. He got up to 230. Right now he's sitting at 6 foot, $195. So he's small for a quarterback. Small for a quarterback. Durability could definitely be an issue today if the Saints are getting constant pressure. So, I mean, Royce better be ready to go, in the event, knock on some wood in the event, he's getting hit too much.
Well, and I'll tell you what, with his body sounding like, 6 foot, 195 pounds, I know he's more muscle than me, but you might as well throw me back at quarterback and see what I could do. So,
I got about 6 pounds on him.
What was that?
I said I got about 6 pounds on him.
So
it's just like you said, not a quarterback physique that you normally see, but at the end of the day, it's like you say all the time on Slate Sports Squad is next man up. That's all it's got to be. So.
And that's what you have to do. We have to take that mentality. We can't go out there and mope and say, why do we have to play? And this isn't fair. Just go out there, strap on the helmet, and let's go out and let's play football and see what happens.
Right. And like you said, have fun, like both of you said, I know Matt just touched on this. We're 4-6. We're not really in playoff contention. I mean, technically we are, but what do you have to lose? You might as well go out there and give it everything you have, whether that's trick plays, whether that's reverses, jet sweeps, RPO, whatever you got to do to get this dude in a rhythm to help you win this football game. It's got to happen, because at the end of the day, there's nothing that we're really holding on to here in Denver anymore. So,
yeah.
Right. No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, one game plan that's kind of coming back into my head, it was It was a Scangarello game plan, but I don't know if you guys remember the game plan against Minnesota last year. We had tons of trickery stuff in there. So I mean, our personnel does have some experience. Hinton has his own personal experience, but not not as a combined unit. But I mean, we did see some trickery and some kind of innovative play calling last year against Minnesota. I mean, so I mean, it's not, I guess, that abnormal to see, say that we're not going to see some trickery. I mean, like we've all said, we're going to have something unique and innovative. So maybe we just dust off that old playbook and threw it at Kendall Hinton last night and say, "Here, read up, son."
Right.
Right.
No, I agree. Just a reminder to everybody, head on over to Rocky Mountain Sports Report Facebook page and group. Join up. Most of the stuff from Slate Sports Squad is eventually going to migrate over into Rocky Mountain Sports Report. So all you Slate Sports Squad people, go over there. Join up with the Rocky Mountain Sports Group. I think or Sports Report. I think we're building a good thing over here. Going to cover more than just Bronco football. We're going to cover all the sports. Follow us on Twitter at Rocky Mountain SR and also on Instagram at Rocky Mountain SR. Get out there, give us your guys' feedback on what you like about our shows, what we can do better, things like that. We want to make this a show that you guys enjoy and that you're willing to come back and watch. Yesterday was just a crazy day. A lot of things happened yesterday in Bronco country that we did not expect to happen. Did anybody expect yesterday for Garrett Bowles to ink a 4-year, $68 million contract extension?
Nope.
So that's what started and it's 2020, so it definitely is 2020. Elway usually does not, do these kind of things in the middle of the season. He usually tells people, well, we'll talk after the season. So I think
Elway, Justin Simmons, basically.
Right, but I think Scott Cole of Rocky Mountain Sports Report, and I think all of us have pretty much echoed this before. You got to lock up a left tackle. When you find a left tackle that is good, you better lock him up. Because they're hard to find. And to go back into the draft or try through free agency to bring somebody else in, and if Garrett Bowles were to leave. So I think that sort of forced Elway's hand that, we better get something done before free agency starts. So because we don't want Garrett Bowles out there testing the market, being that we did not exercise his 5th-year option. So what do you think of his contract signing, Matt?
I'm hesitant. I mean, we've seen three bad years and one. I mean, he's been an elite tackle this year. I mean, so I want to give him credit where it's due. I mean, but is this just one of those one-season wonders? Is kind of my fear. I mean, if I was in management, I might have felt more comfortable giving him the tag for 1 year at like $14.5 million. I think is what the tackle tag is set at. I mean, it gives you a little bit more protection and gives him another year to say like, hey, this is where I'm at. And with Garrett's statements lately, I want to be here for life and things like that. I think he probably would have been okay with it. I think it seems like there's a good relationship going. Like, you've given us 3 bad. Let's see if you can pull up 2, and then we'll talk about a max deal. But we did it this way. We got him at 17 a year. I forgot how much is guaranteed off the top of my head. Scott just pointed out a good option. It might have just been better to pick up the 5th-year option, but unfortunately, that's not what happened.
Right.
But I mean, 17 mil is reasonable. I mean, it makes him the 4th highest left tackle. I mean, it's a gamble. I mean, but always a gambling man. He'll be the first one to tell you that.
Yeah, and Bowles is ranked the number 1 left tackle in the NFL this year. And like you said, I mean, Alex, what are your thoughts? Is it a 1-year wonder? You see sometimes in a contract year, people, they go out and they play well, and then after they secure their contract, they sort of slide back a little bit. What do you think the outlook is for Garrett Bowles?
Well, so I'm happy he got paid. I really am. I think the dude deserves it. I think he's come a long way since day one, obviously. We don't see any WWE anymore, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, we're here to play football. So the only problem I have with this is that, like you said, you could have gone on and used a 5th-year tag on him and paid him roughly $14 to $17 million, whatever the tag might be. And then with that, if you would have gone out and done that, you could have gone out and paid someone at a lesser payroll, like Justin Simmons, who's been asking to get paid because of the way he's been playing here in Denver. And, I would just much rather see us use our resources where we can. It would have been smarter to use or get him in a 5th-year tag and then go pay some of our other players, whether it's Justin Simmons or someone else who's asking to get paid, who deserves it. And then another problem I have is, like you said, basically when people get paid, I'm going to use Von Miller as a kind of an example. He got that huge $114 million contract. And then we kind of seen him slump a little bit. Haven't really seen the Von Miller that we come to know in Super Bowl 50. And that's to be expected. So I'm just hoping that with Garrett Bowles signing and getting this money, that it kind of gives him the motivation to become that much better. It doesn't kind of use the reverse effect. And he's like, oh, I got money now. So what are they going to do if I play like crap?
Right, and I think his guarantee was fairly low, and maybe Scott out there can double check this for us while we're on the air. But I thought it was $12 million was the guarantee. So, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So,
and that's fairly reasonable for a 4-year contract. So, I mean, it was a team friendly deal in a sense. I mean, had he hit the open market, he could have been. I don't think he would surpass maybe the 2 spot. I mean, Bakatari over there at in Green Bay is solid. He's been solid since he came into the league. He's a former Buff, so I don't think he get more than him. But I think he could have hit that 2 or 3 spot for sure on the open market. I'm glad we did resign him. I mean, like you said, offensive tackles are extremely difficult to find. The one thing I do want to highlight, I think this solidifies that we're going to see Vic Fangio and co at least one more season.
I agree 100%.
We're going to continue to build off, hopefully him and Monkjack. The relationship seems solid. I mean, our offensive line has gotten better exponentially each season since he's been here. I know a lot of us are tending like, oh, damn, the offensive line's terrible. But, I mean, we haven't really seen us invest in our offensive line the correct way up until about 2 seasons ago when we drafted Reisner.
Right.
Bowles looked like a bust, so, I mean, I don't want to count him sitting back then. So the real investment started with that draft with Reisner, and now we've seen us invest in several linemen. We've invested in Cushenberry. We've also invested in Moody, who I am super high on, but we can save that story for another day. I mean, Graham Glasgow, he's been solid for us. He hasn't been awful. Right tackle still a mess, but that's because you signed Juwan James to a massive contract. So
that thing is going to haunt us for a season or 2 more. I think that Juwan James signing.
Yeah, we can't release him until I think 2023. I mean, we could release him, but I don't know if you've seen this. I did on Rocky Mountain Sports Report, the group. I did a couple cap breakdowns. Just do some comments, guys. If we were to try to cut Juwan James now, it would be a $19 million dead cap hit, and then an additional $6 million in bonuses we'd get him. So it'd be a $25 million cap hit to cut him, which is about, I think, 12 more than what he's supposed to make this season.
Right.
So it's just not worth it. And plus, it'd be a dead cap year for 2022 as well. I don't know what those figures are because that's where, it gets a little too confusing mathematically.
Yeah, and you got to hope the guy just comes back next year ready to play some football. I mean, and I think it's 99% mental with him right now. So, and I know he didn't want to take the risk with COVID, and I respect that, and everybody was allowed to make that decision. But we saw the year before where he just did not want to get back on the field after suffering injuries. He played 1 game, took himself out, and that's the last we saw him. So, but we'll talk about that more. I think another interesting thing that we'll talk about, and Alex brought it up, was Von Miller. And everybody make sure you tune into our War Room Wednesday with myself, Matt, and Scott. We're going to break down things like this. We're going to go over salary cap. We really talk beyond the X's and O's over on War Room Wednesday, and we talk about off the field things and salary cap and how that's going to impact and what's going to happen with signings and things like that. So we're starting a new segment here. It's called Get to Know Your Broncos. This is Alex's genius here. So this guy here, I think, is going to have to be have a pretty decent game today. So we're going to start it off, and then we'll let Alex tell you about this gentleman after this video.
Right. So that's my buddy. My buddy. I wish I knew him, but DeMarcus Walker right there. Another up and coming Bronco. Been with us for about 4 years now. Before that, lived in Jacksonville, Florida. Played in Jacksonville in high school, and then he went on to play at Florida State University. In 2013, became a BCS national champion. 2016, he was the ACC co-defensive player of the year. He was also voted a consensus All-American that same year, and now has gone on to prove himself as a NFL caliber player. So another fun fact that I like about the dude, and me and him have this in common. I'm not sure about you guys, but huge Harry Potter fan, big old nerd about that. And he says his favorite movie out of the series is number 4 because that's where he stopped reading the books. So just a fun little segment that we like to do here. It was fun making that video. I learned a lot about the dude. I watched a bunch of videos on him. Just seems like a class act and a talent that we're going to come to love here, hopefully in Denver for a long time. So.
Yeah, and Scott brings up a good point. This is another guy we need to re-sign in the offseason. I like DeMarcus Walker. I think he's a key contributor on our defense. What's your thoughts on him, Matt?
I mean, we've seen him struggle early in his NFL career. I mean, he has all the physical abilities. He was just struggling with the defensive scheme. But since working with Vic, and we've seen him significantly improve. I know Vic was doing some one-on-one stuff with him last year, pulling him aside and working on technique with him, which is, I mean, I give Vic kudos. He's probably one of the greatest defensive minds out there. I know we've seen him be a bit overwhelmed as a head coach, but at least, when he took the time to do that with Walker, that was awesome. And we've seen him grow exponentially between last year and this year. We've seen him get a couple sacks this year. We've seen him put some good pressure. I mean, the one thing I got to give him, kudos for is he's naturally a defensive end. He's smaller. He's even small size for that. But we line him up on the interior because of how terrible our injuries have been this year with, Shelby Harris, Purcell, Celia Williams going out last week for a little while. We use him on the interior, and I mean, he gets some pretty good, pressure for sure. He's super undersized for a defensive tackle. So I'll give him kudos. I mean, he's down to play wherever he needs to play. And
he definitely is.
Trades.
Yeah. I think he is the third leading sack leader in Florida State history. So he had a good career at Florida State, and I hope the Broncos do re-sign him and he becomes a vital part of our defense moving forward. So, well, guys, we're to that point. Friday, the Rocky Mountain Sports Report writers, we all posted our predictions. I think most of us picked the Saints to win. Yours truly here picked the Broncos to win 23-21 with a McManus last-second field goal to win it. And I believe there was one other that picked the Broncos as well. So
John Campbell.
John Campbell came out as well. So, John, if you're listening, shoot us what your prediction is now. Alex, we'll start with you. Go ahead and lay out your prediction for this game.
All right. So on this prediction, I'm going to start on the offensive side of the ball. I believe that it's just going to be too much for this young quarterback who doesn't have a lot of experience to be playing a team a defensive team as good as the New Orleans Saints. I think that he causes a few turnovers, at least one interception today, if not a fumble. I'm going to go with the Saints on top, 31-17.
All right, Matt, you're on deck. Who do you got?
All right. So in my initial prediction, I had the Broncos, losing. So the Broncos losing 28-24. I had a 15-15 split for Lindsey and Gordon. Gordon getting one receiving touchdown, Locke throwing 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's changing, of course. I think the defense can still hold them to 28 points. However, I think we're going to struggle on offense. It's just lack of preparation, unfortunately. There just wasn't enough time. So I'm putting it at 28-10, and that touchdown comes off of good field position. Maybe we get a turnover inside the red zone, maybe on their side of the field, and able to push in one touchdown, maybe a 15-yard Philip Lindsay scamper. I don't know. But 28-10 is what I got.
Okay. So both of you are going with the Saints.
Uh-oh.
Would you guys say I'm crazy if I picked the Broncos?
Lack of videos. Lack of tape on Hinton points in your favor, man. It's not impossible. It's really not.
It's not. Nothing's impossible in the NFL. So
Sometimes you just have these feelings, and I don't know if it is. I really think that the Broncos can win this thing, or if it's just gas pains or what. But I got this feeling. It's a funny feeling that I have. I think that Hinton's going to come out and he's going to shock the Saints a little bit with this unorthodox style offense that we're going to be running. I don't know if the Saints are really going to be prepared for it. I think Hinton can get outside, and he's smaller now, so he's a little faster. I think his 40 time at the combine was 4.48 was his fastest, so he may run around there, a 4.4 or something. So maybe he can get outside, with some RPO and make some things happen with his legs. I think, Denver lining up 2-3 people in the backfield, running sort of a modified wildcat can cause some issues for the Saints. The Saints, and I'm going to say this, the Saints have played sort of a soft schedule. I don't think the Saints have, mowed through this like just killer schedule. You see when they play decent teams, they struggled at times. Yeah, I think Denver's defense keeps us in this ball game, and you're going to hear it here first. I'm going to go with the Saints 24-7. So.
I like the build-up.
Dude, I tried to talk myself into it, but I just can't do it. Maybe at halftime, Matt, you and I come back and we're happy. We're talking something good. So
before we hop off, can we highlight Scott's last comment real quick? So maybe we get what is it? Was the record? Was it 7 field goals for McManus? Was that the record now? Or was it 8? I can't even remember.
He kicked 6 against the Patriots.
Maybe we break the record with 7 and sneak
7 and a safety.
7 and a maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Get Taysom Hill back in the end zone. Trying to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
Gee whiz, maybe I'll have to.
Special teams mistake, guys. We already beat up everywhere else. Special teams.
I tell you, I really do want to be. I want to pick the Broncos. I'm just nervous, I really want to because I think that something crazy could happen here today.
Right.
I think that Denver could go out and shock the Saints. But all the stars are going to have to align. All the planets are going to have to align. Everything's going to have to be perfect. The defense is going to have to get some turnovers, and we're not good at that. We're minus 13 in the turnover game. If the defense can get some scores, or put the offense in some short fields, I would pick the Broncos.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's going to happen, but something really is telling me inside that the Broncos are going to win this today. And maybe it's just me being a Bronco homer, but I try to look at these things, objectively. I think Denver matches up well with the Saints. As long as we don't let their receivers, just run wild on us. If we come up with a good scheme like Matt was talking about where we can slow down their receiving game and we keep Taysom Hill in the pocket with our defense, I think we can force some turnovers because we'll force him to make some bad decisions. If that happens, I could see the Broncos winning this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like I said earlier in the show, any given Sunday, anything can happen. So it's just there's a wide range of possibilities for this game. I'm with you, David. I think at the end of the day, I would love to see the Broncos win, obviously. But is it in the cards? Yeah, it is. But like you said, everything's gonna have to happen. I already got a pre-ritual going on in my garage, so I can, sum up some luck for them. But whatever's got to happen. if you're gonna make a move, it's got to be today. If you're looking for 100% from every guy on that field, it's got to be today. Because if not, it's just gonna be us sitting there, not really looking like a football team. So
yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I hope Scott is right. You know, I would love.
They got that aggression in them.
They do.
That could lead to some potential playmaking. So I mean, you're right. It's a toss up.
Would you take the 14 points that Scott's saying MGM bet is given right now? Would you take the 14?
No.
Matt?
Probably not. No, I wouldn't.
No. Well, we know Scott would. And, you know, if I was betting $5, you know, maybe I'd take those 14. But I just don't know if the problem is, I think our offense, if we're not going to be able to sustain drives, our defense is just going to get worn out, you know. So, wow.
It's 16.5 now.
Wow.
Vegas ain't liking us.
All right. You know, I'm sitting on 17 right now. I picked 24-7. So maybe I take that 16.
I said 28-10. So
yeah,
so technically, I mean, I would do it. That's my predict. I'm hoping we put up more points, you know, as a homer. I mean,
16.5 is a huge line in the NFL.
Right. Well, and you know why it's 16.5?
Well, because we don't have a quarterback.
Well, that, and you know, the Raiders play there now, so everyone the Broncos.
Well, I don't know. So, you know, we all got our prediction. What's yours again, Alex? What was your score?
31-17 Saints.
So Alex would definitely be falling in, taking those points. I'm right on the border. Matt's on the border. So, you know, hopefully the Broncos go out there, shock the world. You know, thanks, Alex. Thanks, Matt. It's been fun doing the show with you guys. You guys
can I mention one thing?
Any parting shots? Yeah, what do you got, Alex?
All right, so I know this is a Denver Broncos show. I'm really excited about this. So, like we mentioned earlier in the show, we are partnering with Rocky Mountain Sports Report, and on Tuesday, I will have my full article, first full release article with Rocky Mountain Sports Report, and I'm excited to work with these guys. Nothing but love since I stepped on the scene, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. So I appreciate you guys. Me.
Welcome, Alex. Looking forward to see what you have to say about the Nuggets. So, any parting shots, Matt?
Let's bring home a win, guys. You know, I'm gonna pray. We got rituals going on upstairs. Say a good prayer up above, and let's see what happens. But I'll try to stay optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all you can do right now, stay optimistic. So got a comment here. Thanks, guys. Go Broncos. Wish we knew who this was. You know, we appreciate it. Just a heads up for everybody. If you're in a group on Facebook, it will not allow your name to come across for some reason. You have to give Survey Monkey permission in Facebook to use your name. So just for in the future, if you want, go ahead. Good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. It's sort of like everything else, just got flipped on its head yesterday afternoon about 3 or 4 o'clock when the news came out that all of the Broncos quarterbacks were deemed ineligible. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to go upstairs. We know the Saints are usually the one down in New Orleans doing the voodoo, but I think we're going to have to do some voodoo today, you know.
I got some black magic working.
If anybody wants to join me, I got some in the garage. Right?
Yeah, Alex has a goat out in his garage right now. So, so all right, everybody, join me and Matt at halftime. Hopefully we got smiles on our face, and hopefully the Broncos are making it a fun and competitive game at halftime. We enjoyed being on here with all you guys. Tell your friends about us. Spread the news. Rocky Mountain Sports Report is growing, so get on board and get your friends on board. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.